All right, let's talk about that nagging feeling. You know the one I mean, right? That feeling where you're absolutely convinced everyone is watching your every single move. Well, we're going to dive into the science that says, guess what? You can probably relax, at least a little bit. Oh, yeah, you know that exact moment. You trip on a totally flat sidewalk, or you spill coffee right down the front of your clean shirt. Or my personal favorite, you walk into a completely silent room, and bam, instantly you're convinced every single person has just stopped what they're doing to stare at you. That's the feeling we're talking about. You know, this scene from the movie The Lonely Guy just nails it. It's so funny, but at the same time, it's a deeply uncomfortable feeling, right? It doesn't matter if you're eating alone or just having a terrible hair day. That imaginary spotlight, man, it can feel so real. Okay, so let's actually put a name to this thing. It's a super common, totally human experience, and psychologists have actually figured out what's going on here. And here it is, the spotlight effect. Back in 1999, two psychologists, Thomas Gilovich and Kenneth Savitsky, gave it this name. And it's basically this. Our brains have this tendency to just wildly overestimate how much other people notice us. I mean, think about it. We're the main character in our own story, right? So we kind of just assume we have a major role and everyone else is too. So how in the world do you prove something like that? Well, they came up with this brilliant and maybe just a little bit cruel experiment. It involved a bunch of unsuspecting college students, a room full of their classmates, and one, let's just say, very memorable t-shirt. So get this. They had students wear a pretty embarrassing t-shirt. We're talking a giant picture of Barry Manilow, and then walk into a room full of other students. Afterwards, they asked them, okay, how many people do you think noticed your shirt? And consistently, people guessed about half the room saw it. But the reality, it was less than a quarter. The spotlight in their head was literally twice as bright as the real one. Okay, so this brings us to a related idea. Think of it like a close cousin to the spotlight effect. If the spotlight is about thinking everyone sees what we do, this next one is all about thinking everyone knows what we feel. It's called the illusion of transparency. It's this deep-seated feeling that our internal thoughts and emotions are just leaking out for everyone to see. You know, when you're nervous, you're positive everyone can hear your heart pounding out of your chest. Or when you're disgusted by something, you just assume it's written all over your face. But here's the kicker. It's usually not. And to test this idea, researchers came up with another really clever experiment. It's simple, really. One person taps out the rhythm of a super famous song, and another person just has to guess what it is. Sounds easy, right? Well, just look at this massive gap. The person tapping the song, they can hear the whole thing in their head. The music, the words, the guitar solo, everything. So they figured, hey, people should guess this right about 50% of the time. But the listeners, all they heard were taps. And they only guessed the song correctly a measly 3% of the time. It's just such a perfect illustration of how our internal experience is so much richer and clearer to us than it is to anybody on the outside. So what's going on here? Why are our brains so bad at this? Why do we get it so wrong? Well, it boils down to a fundamental mental shortcut, a little trick our brain uses all the time, usually without us even noticing. It's something called the anchoring and adjustment heuristic. Basically, we are anchored to our own experience. That's our default setting, our starting point. So when we're nervous, our anchor is, my heart is pounding. This is so obvious. Then our brain tries to adjust for other people's perspective. We think, okay, maybe it's not that obvious. But here's the problem. That adjustment is almost never enough. We can't fully escape our own feelings. So while we're obsessing over how nervous we look, there's a very good chance the person across from us is just wondering what they're going to have for lunch. Now, this isn't just some fun psychological quirk to know about. This stuff has real world consequences. Figuring out that our brain does this is the absolute first step to managing the anxiety it can cause, especially when it comes to our careers and professional lives. And if any of this is starting to sound, well, a little too familiar, trust me, you are not alone. This is a common cognitive bias, and it can really trap us in a nasty cycle of anxiety, right? We start reading into everything. A neutral look from a coworker becomes negative judgment, and pretty soon we just start avoiding those situations altogether, all to escape a spotlight that isn't even there. And in the workplace, this is where it can really do some damage. I mean, think about it. If you're terrified that everyone's going to judge you for making one tiny mistake, are you really going to speak up in a meeting with a bold, new, maybe slightly risky idea? Probably not. That fear of the spotlight can literally stop people from sharing their best ideas and from communicating openly. And that doesn't just hurt you, it hurts the entire team. But here is the really good news. Just knowing that this is a thing, just understanding the science behind it, that is half the battle. Seriously, because it gives us a toolkit, a way to fight back against this faulty brain wiring and finally dim that spotlight for good. So how do we actually do that? Here are 4 really practical steps you can take. Number 1, shift your focus. Get out of your own head and remember that everyone else is just as wrapped up in their own lives as you are in yours. They're the main character of their movie. Number 2, talk back to that negative voice. Actively challenge those assumptions with a more rational perspective. Number 3, get some real data. Instead of guessing what people think, ask a trusted friend or colleague for some honest feedback. Replace the fiction with fact. And finally, number 4, practice mindfulness. This helps you stay grounded in what's actually happening right now, instead of getting swept away by that tornado of, what are they thinking about me? And look, if this feeling goes beyond just a little self-consciousness and becomes really serious social anxiety, it's so important to know that there is real, powerful, science-backed help out there. Things like cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, are incredibly good at helping you spot these thought patterns and rewire them, which can make a huge difference in building confidence and dialing down that anxiety. So when you really let it sink in that the spotlight isn't really on you, that you're not living under a microscope, it's more than just a relief. It is genuinely liberating. It's freedom. It's the freedom to take a chance, to be your authentic self, to worry less about what other people might think, and focus more on what you actually want to do. So the real question I want to leave you with is this. Knowing the spotlight isn't really on you, what are you going to do with all that freedom?